Hello, my name is Maren Whitlock, and for most of my life, my father treated me like a shadow at my own family's table. At the reunion, he laughed as he introduced me to everyone as just a Navy enlistee, stripping away years of sacrifice and service with one dismissive phrase. Surrounded by relatives and business partners, I stood there humiliated, as if all I'd accomplished meant nothing. I wanted to disappear, but deep inside I knew the truth he buried wouldn't stay hidden forever, and when it surfaced, his pride would shatter before everyone's eyes. The chandeliers spilled their light across polished marble, refracting in every glass flute and diamond necklace. The air held that blend of roasted meat and expensive perfume I had always associated with gatherings where people weren't simply related by blood, but bound by ambition. September had cooled the evening outside, but in here warmth pressed heavy, every laugh sharpened by wine and calculation. My phone had buzzed on the drive over. A single text from my mother. "It's time to face him." The words lingered still, not a request, not advice, just inevitability. I thought of ignoring it, but here I was, heels clicking toward a man whose approval I had once mistaken for oxygen. Alden Whitlock commanded the center as always, tall silver at his temple's voice, pitched perfectly to draw orbiting satellites closer. The cluster around him adjusted their stance the way tides obeyed gravity. His gaze brushed the room like a searchlight until it landed on me. His smile tightened professional, as though he'd forgotten I was family and remembered only that I was a card he could play. "This is my daughter Maren," he announced, gesturing with casual precision, just a Navy enlistee. The words slid through the air, velvet wrapped around steel. Heads turned, eyes assessing. A few murmurs of polite acknowledgement, a handshake here, a distracted smile there. Then the current of conversation flowed back to property values, mergers, retirement funds. My existence catalogued, minimized, and shelved. I swallowed once, letting the taste of champagne and dismissal mingle. 10 years in uniform missions folded into silent scars hidden under dress fabric, and all he saw fit to offer was just. Finn sat off to the side, a 17-year-old trying to look invisible behind his phone screen. His sneakers tapped restless rhythm under the table, thumbs darting with teenage urgency. He glanced up, eyes snagging on me, then on Alden, then back to his phone. Something in his stare lingered sharp where the rest had dulled. My mother stood across the ballroom posture, serene hands clasped like she was waiting for an answer she already knew. Her eyes touched mine, calm, but charged a reminder that silence had never saved me, only postponed the cut. I let the room's chatter wash over me, stocks, golf scores, the next gala to outshine this one, while inside I counted the years of being shaved down to fit someone else's narrative. Each syllable from Alden was a chisel carving away until I was a ghost at my own family's table. I thought I'd swallow it like always until I saw the look on Finn's face and the glow of his phone screen. One shaky video was enough to shatter the chandelier glow of my father's kingdom. The laughter from the ballroom dimmed the moment Finn's phone lit up. In the reflection of his glasses, I caught the unmistakable blur of night vision green. My stomach clenched. So this was the light I had noticed, small, glowing, yet dangerous enough to slice through the polished walls of the Lakeview Country Club. He muttered, "Wait, isn't this her?" His voice cracked, yet carried through the hush. The screen showed a figure tackling a man twice her size, the flash of a blade under foreign stars. My silhouette. My fight. The room went still, as if someone had cut the music with a blade. Gasps followed, then whispers. Aunts clutched pearls, cousins leaned across linen-draped tables, and Alden's business partners pulled out their own phones to check headlines. A grainy clip meant to remain buried now played beneath chandeliers and champagne flutes. My father's glass slipped from his fingers and shattered against the parquet floor. The sound echoed like a gunshot. He froze, his face drained of its practiced superiority. For years, he had reduced me to 4 words, just a Navy enlistee. Now the truth was replaying on loop before every eye that had ever looked down on me. I never wanted recognition like this, I thought. Not here, not under chandeliers, not as gossip fuel. But the ballroom had turned into a court, and I was suddenly the witness, the accused, and the evidence, all at once. Celia stood near, the back expression unreadable, phone still in her hand. She had texted me earlier. It's time to face him. Now I wondered if she had known more than she ever said. One of Alden's partners, a portly man in seersucker, leaned close to whisper loudly enough for others to hear. If that's true, Whitlock Holdings could use it. His smile was sharp, opportunistic, already plotting how my scars might serve their portfolios. The realization made me colder than the air-conditioned draft curling across the hall. The video ended, leaving only the stunned silence of polished shoes and champagne breath. Dozens of eyes shifted toward me, then toward Alden, waiting for him to spin the narrative like he always had. For once, he had no script. His jaw worked soundlessly, his hand trembling at his side. I stood motionless, heat rising through my chest. For a decade he had rehearsed his control, and now it was crumbling with every replay. Finn's phone still glowed, replaying the frame where I had driven the enemy down, knife flashing. Around us, the chatter swelled again, questions firing fragments of awe, doubt, even admiration. I caught my father's stare, pale, furious, cornered. He moved toward me fast, despite his age, and seized my elbow with a grip harder than I expected. His voice was low, broken between his teeth. Come with me. Now. They thought a locked door would silence me instead. It unlocked the truth my father never wanted to admit. The door closed with a hollow click, shutting out the noise of the ballroom. A faint glow from brass sconces painted the paneled walls, but the corners remained in shadow. The conference room smelled faintly of polish and dust, a place meant for strategy, not family reckonings. Alden pressed his hands against the door before turning. The mask he had worn all night sagged. Why didn't you tell me? His voice was rough, more plea than demand. I pulled out a chair but stayed standing. Would you have listened? He blinked, caught off guard. You let me look like a fool, like you had something to hide. Do you realize what this means for our family, for me? You made me invisible, I said. Every time you called me just a Navy enlistee, you erased everything I survived. His jaw tightened. If I minimized it, maybe it would be safer. Do you know what it's like to imagine a doorbell in the night, 2 uniforms at the step? If I kept it small, maybe I could believe you'd come home. The words hit harder than I expected. For years, I'd carried contempt for his dismissals, never once considering fear might be hiding beneath. Still, the truth didn't excuse the harm. You shrank me to make yourself feel better, I said. But I didn't need your fear. I needed your belief. He flinched, shoulders collapsing as if the suit no longer fit. He sank into a chair, trembling hands knotted together. Belief means losing control, he whispered. I've never survived without control. Control didn't save you tonight, I answered. A teenager with a phone destroyed your narrative in seconds. His eyes dropped to the floor. For once, the master of every room seemed smaller than the silence between us. My phone buzzed. I glanced down, a message from Celia. Now let them see you. Short, sharp, perfectly timed. I slid the phone into my pocket. Alden noticed his lips tightening. She knew. More than she let on. She didn't erase me, I said. She left a light on when you shut the door. He leaned forward, voice breaking. I wanted you safe. I didn't know how to let you be brave. I breathed steadily like I had on cold nights in the surf. You don't get to narrate me anymore. If you want to stay in my life, stand beside me while the truth speaks. Nothing less. He looked up, eyes wet, words lost. For once there was no toast, no speech. Just a man undone by the truth he couldn't control. I stepped toward the door, my voice calm. I'm going back out there. You decide who you'll be when you stand up. The weight of my hand on the knob felt like a line crossed. My father's silence filled the space fragile as glass. My phone buzzed again, the earlier message pulsing like a beacon in my pocket. Then the sound of applause burst through the walls, but I knew it wasn't for him. They gave him the microphone, but the truth forced him to hand it to me. The chandeliers glared like judgment as the ballroom shifted from chatter to ceremony. Chairs inched toward the stage. The quartet fell still. Early fall night pressed against the windows and a hush rippled over linen and crystal. My father stood near the aisle, rigid as if motion would collapse the facade he wore. The MC tapped the mic. Ladies and gentlemen, a special acknowledgement this evening, a letter of gratitude from the American Engineers Association. The words landed like a gavel. Celia's gaze caught mine across the room. No nod now, only the quiet weight of her earlier message. Now let them see you. A man in a plain suit mounted the steps. I'm Everett Lang, lead engineer with Meridian Systems. His voice thinned on one word, taken. 6 weeks ago, my team was taken. We were moved to a concrete maze that smelled like diesel and fear. A rescue came in the dark. Efficient. Precise. She pushed us toward the light when we froze. He swallowed and then clean as a verdict. She pulled us out alive. Silence thickened. Even the chandeliers seemed to wait. Lang raised an envelope with a seal. A formal letter of thanks, he said. One line reads, "We recognize the unnamed operator whose actions preserved American lives. We recognize the families who carry the silence such service demands." Heads turned toward me and recoiled as if the sentence had reached into the room and touched them. He opened a small case and lifted a challenge coin, dark metal catching light. I had one made. It isn't official, but it's ours. On one side, the schematic of the door we escaped. On the other, 2 words, steady hands, because that's what she gave us when we couldn't stand. He stepped down and stopped an arm's length away. "We don't need your name," he said softly, placing the coin in my palm. "But we needed the chance to say thank you." The metal was warm. I closed my fist around it and let my breath settle the sting behind my eyes. Applause began like weather-scattered drops, then rain, then a storm. People rose. Crystal rattled. The noise rolled to the back wall and broke. My father's fingers clenched the chair he held, as if it were a rail on the edge of a moving ship. When it ebbed, the MC returned. "Mr. Whitlock, would you like to reintroduce your daughter?" All eyes swung to him. The lighting loved his suit, not his face. It showed the cost of wearing certainty. Alden stepped forward slow, as if the floor had shifted. He didn't adjust the mic. He didn't warm the room. He looked at me, then at the coin locked in my hand, and found the only sentence the night would take from him. "This is my daughter, Maren Whitlock, United States Navy SEAL." The ovation detonated. Chairs scraped back. Hands struck hands until the sound became weather again. A partner who had whispered about branding swallowed his words. An aunt dabbed her eyes. Finn shone at the rear like a streetlight, equal parts pride and mischief. Celia stood very still, her hands loosely clasped, not staging a spectacle, only letting the truth arrive under its own power. I did not move to the microphone. I let the letters language, the coin's weight, and the witness's voice do the work that never wanted a speech. The chandeliers hummed. The windows held the night. My father stood inside the applause like a man who had just met the limits of his control and found them merciless and exact. The quartet lifted their instruments and then set them down again, realizing music would only blur what clarity had finally entered the room. Some guests sat, then stood again as the clapping swelled without cue, as if the body understood before the mind that a threshold had been crossed. Lang slipped to the side of the stage, face open with a relief I recognized from exfil, not triumph, but the permission to breathe. A waiter frozen for minutes remembered his tray and smiled at me like we shared a secret. I felt the coin warm against my lifeline, its ridged edge printing a small crescent into my skin, a proof more honest than any headline. My father's mouth moved once, twice, forming speeches that found no air. He lowered his gaze. Only then did the room understand that the narrative had changed hosts and that no one could hand it back. I didn't smile. I only stood taller, letting the applause drown the silence my father could never control again. Applause fades, but dignity lingers, and for the first time it was mine alone to carry. The ovation ebbed, leaving the chandeliers bright against a quieter room. The ballroom had changed, no longer my father's stage, but a witness stand. Outside the windows, autumn wind rattled branches and yellow leaves clung to the glass like fleeting sparks. I walked to the podium without invitation. It was never about titles, I said, my voice carrying easily. It was about bringing people home. A ripple of agreement moved through the guests, softer than applause but steadier. I let my hands rest against the lectern. Nothing we did was solo. In the dark, you move because someone else moves with you. You breathe because somebody's counting under their breath. You make it out because a dozen steady hands form one path. I didn't look for Everett Lang, but I sensed him withdraw, leaving the space to me. At the front, Alden sat low in his chair, shoulders sagging as if the suit itself weighed him down. For years he had rewritten rooms like this to confirm his power. Tonight, the silence around him proved otherwise. Celia's hand brushed mine in passing, quiet as breath. "Face it head on," her note from long ago whispered through the light. A man in a linen jacket rose, smile tight. "Maren, your story could elevate Whitlock Holdings. A gala keynote, perhaps. Dignity isn't for sale." My tone didn't rise, but the words struck. The ballroom paused, gears caught between habit and recognition. Then applause spread, not explosive but deliberate, like hands affirming something they had forgotten to value. I waited until it softened. There are silences we keep to protect lives, but there's another silence that erases. I won't carry that one anymore. A few guests lowered their eyes. The violinist dabbed at hers. Outside, wind pressed more leaves against the windows, a rhythm echoing my resolve. "I won't speak for my team," I continued. "I won't speak for politics or profit. Service is a debt you choose, not a brand you sell. If you feel gratitude tonight, pass it forward to someone you'll never meet." I stepped back, breathing steady. The linen-suited partner sat chastened. Everett lingered at the back, content to vanish into the crowd. Celia's fingers squeezed mine under the table, pride translated into pressure, pressure into calm. Then Alden rose. Not to toast, not to claim, only because sitting no longer fit. He didn't reach for the mic. He lowered his gaze, unshielded at last. I didn't need recognition from headlines, I only needed to stop being erased at my own table. The line landed like a key in a lock. The room held still, unwilling to bruise it with sound. I stepped down from the podium. The challenge coin weighed in my palm, warm and real. The chandeliers hummed, the wind pressed steady against the glass, and for once, the silence belonged to me. I caught my father's eyes, lowered, unguarded, and for once I felt no anger, only the justice of finally being seen. I carried the weight of being erased for years, and tonight I finally stood tall in my own name. If my story touched you, I ask for your voice. Leave a comment, share your thoughts, and remind me that dignity is worth defending. Every message of support keeps the silence from winning again. To anyone listening, don't let others decide your worth. I learned that applause fades, but the courage to face the truth will stay. When life tries to shrink, you refuse to bend. Stand firm, speak clear, and know that justice, though late, can still be yours.